Good morning and welcome to the Costa del Sol and welcome to Life in Spain News, my little news channel on YouTube where I try and bring you news from across Spain, be it local, international or nationally based. Okay, before I get going today, I just want to give a big thank you to anybody who's left a comment on a previous video. It's much appreciated and it does motivate me to keep going with this little project. So please share my videos, please like them and please leave a comment because I do enjoy reading what you write and will always try and get back to you. Okay, on to the news. And today's first story isn't so much a news story, but more probably a news rumour, which has been picked up by various local news outlets here and various internet news channels. So we should have to take this with a pinch of salt because it does concern the airline Ryanair. Now, Ryanair, as everybody knows, have a reputation for spreading rumours, which they later deny, be it changing their flights to all standing or charging people for the toilet. Basically gives them free publicity in the press as those stories tend to go viral. Now, if they are going to cancel 1,000 winter flights, that is a bit of a worry here. And the rumour has it that they're not very happy with the charges that the Spanish airports are charging them. Now, there could be some truth in that because tourism here is at a strange kind of juncture at the moment, which doesn't seem a kind of like a fair analysis because if anything, Spain is set to overtake France and become the #1 tourist destination in the world. But what we've seen down here over the summer, which we're coming to the end of now, is that definitely a downturn in tourism. Apart from Malaga city itself, there's various stories that the Costa del Sol is actually 10% down on previous years. Once again, you can read various news reports and find various information. What has been reported, though, is quite interesting, is there are less Spanish tourists here now and more foreign tourists. So if flights are being cancelled through the winter, that does make you wonder how that will affect things down here. Now, I have done a video previously about the tourists down here and how that kind of thing is changing, and are tourists still welcome? Because as many people will know, there has been various tourist demonstrations throughout Spain, which make a lot of news throughout the world. Now, I haven't seen any tourist demonstrations myself, although I am aware they are happening. But one thing I will say is down here is things have got rather expensive. Now, when I say expensive, that's nothing compared to the prices a lot of people pay in the north of Europe. But when you put it in comparison to the wage that people earn here in Spain, things have got expensive here, with in general things going up 25% on the Costa del Sol. Now, Malaga Airport itself is already an overworked airport, but as I spoke about on a previous video, they have plans to expand that, which was more interesting in that same video. I talked about the Spanish plans to have a terminal for the Spanish side of Gibraltar. So we'll see how that works out. Now, talking about Gibraltar, it now appears that in 2026, the border will be coming to an end with free movement between Gibraltar and Spain. Now, this has been eventually sorted out after years and years of turmoil over that particular thing, especially since the 2020 Brexit. Now, Gibraltar has an interesting history from the 1960s when Franco closed the border until it was reopened again in '82 under Felipe González. But it is very important for the Spanish Gibraltar at the moment because there are allegedly up to 15,000 workers who travel across that border every day. Now, in a previous video, I mentioned this was also a problem with the bringing of tobacco and the illegal tobacco trade between the two countries. Now, this seems to be sorted out as some sort of duty has been put on tobacco, I believe, in Gibraltar, making it not so cheap as it used to be. But it now seems the good news is that from 2026, that border will remain open. Now, when I say remain open, it doesn't mean that you can land at the airport and walk straight into Spain, because the airport will still operate with two separate passport checks, one going into Gibraltar and one coming into Spain. Anyway, this is good news. The bad news of that, before this happens, they will be putting in a harder border for a couple of months until the fine print and bureaucracy is taken care of. But once again, good news that we'll have some free movement between the two areas. Now over to one of my favourite news stories and my favourite thing that happens every year in Spain. And that is the festival of the tomato throwing down in Buñol, which is in the Valencia region. Which is known as the Tomatina. Now, this has been going on for many, many years. I'm sure lots of you would have seen footage of this because it tends to go viral and make various news stories around the world. Now, this festival itself started, I believe, in the 40s when a different type of festival was what was happening in that small town, where they used to have a parade of giants and people wearing large heads. Now, so rumour has it, one year there was a bit of a dispute between locals, and one of the large heads was knocked off, which ended up knocking over a fruit stand, which then ended up in a large fruit fight where people picked up pieces of fruit and started throwing at each other. Now, the following year, once again happened as locals brought fruit with them to pelt at certain people in these large heads. And that then progressed to what we have today, which is the tomato throwing madness. Now, this is a huge affair, and up to 20,000 people attend this every year. Of course, the locals have priority, and their festival is very sacred to them, so they obviously don't have to pay to get into. But as this has got more and more popular over the year with tourists, they've had to restrict numbers and actually charge people €15 from out of town to join the festivities. Now, from living down here in Andalusia, where tomato-based soups like gazpacho and salmorejo are very popular, I do have to question the waste of good tomatoes, even though these tomatoes are all ripe and are uneatable, allegedly. Now, I read somewhere that it was up to 120,000 kilos of tomatoes which are thrown around on this particular hour, on this particular day. So that's a lot of tomatoes. You would think, what a mess this must make. But from all reports, locals actually say that once the festival is over, it's only an hour, the actual food fight, water cannons are brought in and the streets are probably cleaner afterwards than before. Anyway, what a wonderful spectacle it is, and let's hope it continues for as long as I'm on this planet, because it does raise a smile every time I do see the footage. Now, something that isn't so cheerful is that what's going on in Gaza at the moment, and what's Spain's involvement with that. Now, as many of you will know, Spain is one of the few countries that openly support a Palestinian state, I think along with Ireland, Norway, and maybe Malta. I may be wrong there. Now, in the early part of August, along with Germany and France, Spain took part in a huge food drop over the Gaza Strip, which consisted of 12 tons of food, which was basically 5,500 food rations. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these food rations tend to end up in the wrong hands and can be sold on the markets there for up to €100. But what was very interesting about this was there was lots of false news spread around, and a couple of viral videos went around. One which was shown, which I'll put up on the screen now, is that they were claiming that some of the food packages that came in from Spain, which originated from Alicante, had mouldy food in it. Now, I find this very bizarre because a lot of this is non-perishable stuff, and these food packets, so I've been reading, is food which is good up to the end of 2026. Another thing which was very strange and probably shows you more the fake news culture we live in at the moment was they also claiming there were pork products in these packages, which once again has been denied. But once again, it shows you how social media works and what kind of disinformation is spread. Now, connecting to what's going on in Palestine, this week we've had some pro-Palestine demonstrations, which have been happening all over the place, as most people will know who follow the news. But this one was a little bit different and a bit more disruptive for a certain type of event. Because at the moment in Spain, we have La Vuelta de España, which is the big cycle race here, which is one of the 3 Grand Tours behind the Tour de France and the Giro d'Italia. Now, this travels all over Spain and takes part over 2 weeks. And at the moment, in that particular competition, there is a team from Israel competing. What's happened during one of these, well, a couple of these stages, is that these pro-Palestine demonstrators have managed to get onto the course and actually stop this team from riding. And this footage is quite dramatic in many ways, because it could be quite dangerous to the cyclists. Now, there's a lot of debate, should Israeli teams be thrown out of sports events? And recently we had the big debate here when Pedro Sanchez, the Prime Minister of Spain, claimed that Israel should have no part in the Eurovision Song Contest. What to do is a difficult subject, because it's not so much the fault of the Israeli people, more the fault of the Israeli government. Okay, finally, I would usually end up talking about wild boar and show you footage of more wild boar walking along the beach or something like that. But unfortunately, there hasn't been much sightings this week, so I'm going to have to restrict that to another day. But what I did come across was related to the very sad wildfires which have been happening across Spain recently. And that was this footage, which would give you a bit of a shock if you lived in this particular house, as I will put up on the screen now. As you can see here, there is a helicopter that is obviously picking up water to attack or to help stop these wildfires, and it's dipped into a swimming pool. Now, people may question if this is illegal or not, but it actually is legal, and they are quite permitted to do this. But it still makes some quite amazing footage, and also would be quite shocking if you were sat in that particular house. Okay, that's all I got time for today. I hope you've enjoyed my content. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. I'll catch you on the other side. Have a lovely day.